Hello my amazing art friends. Last art rotation we learned all about the French artist Claude Monet. And so we learned that he likes to paint outside, his favorite thing to paint is nature, and that he was a part of a group of artists called the Impressionists. They were called the Impressionists because they tried to capture a feeling or a moment. So they had to paint really quickly, they used bright colors, and they weren't worried about making their work look perfect. And so we started working on our water lily paintings with the Japanese bridge, and today we're going to be finishing them by adding some paint. So let's get started. Alrighty friends, so I have my Japanese bridge from last time where we drew our bridge, added our greenery and our water lilies, and they get smaller as they get farther away. So I'm going to show you guys how to make paint using some just washable Crayola markers. I showed you guys how to do this before, but if you don't remember, I'm just going to make a little refresher for you. So I have some different blues and purples that are going to be for my water, and then greens and yellows for our greenery. And so today I'm going to show you a different technique we use with our watercolors called wet on wet. And so I'm going to get my paper a little bit wet with just a brush and some water first. And it's going to help my colors spread. You don't want your paper to be too soaking wet, especially if you are using like copy paper instead of construction paper, because then it might tear or crumple. So if you have a really thin paper, maybe add just a very small layer of water. All right, so I have my paper nice and wet. So to make my color, I'm going to use a plastic lid, or you could also use foil. And I'm going to make my own palette by coloring with the chisel tip of the marker on the palette. And then I'll use my brush with a little bit of water to activate that color. And I'm going to add some drops of color throughout here so I can paint like the Impressionists. I wonder if I can even add some color on my paper, tiny bit. Need some more. So I'm adding a little bit of yellow. I'll add some of my greens. And so I'm just kind of dabbing the paint around, and the water that's already on my plate or my paper is helping it spread around. And I'm going to use my greens and yellows to fill up the top portion of my bridge painting. If you have watercolors, you can do the same thing, but instead of having to make your own color with the marker, you'll just dab the color on with your brush. Okay. So now I finished the greenery portion, and I'm going to start with the water. It looks like my paper dried up a little bit though, so I'm gonna really clean my brush and add a tiny bit more down here for my blues and purples. And I'm going to clean my palette with a paper towel or a tissue to add my new colors. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with my trees, but for my water. Adding some blues. And because we used wax and we're using water paint, they're not going to stick to each other. So it's okay if you put your paint right on top of those lily pads that you made. And I'm going to keep doing this until all my white space is filled up. That covers just about all the space. And so now I have, a beautiful water lily garden with a Japanese bridge inspired by Claude Monet. And as you can see, my paper is very wet, so you'll need to let it dry for a little bit. But once it's all dry, go ahead and snap a picture and then upload it to Schoology. All right, my friends, I hope you guys had so much fun making your water lily garden, and happy creating.